everybody. Welcome. Good evening. This is Omaha Public Library's virtual book bash. I'm Erin Dewar. I'm the Readers and Writers Librarian for OPL, and I'm going to be your MC/host this evening. So before we get underway, I have a bit of housekeeping to get through with you guys. So you should be able to see me on your screen. You should be able to hear me. And also on the right side of your screen, this is probably your right side, you should see our chat. Please chat through the evening like you guys already are. That's great. Let us know what you're excited about, what you're hearing that you really are interested in, and let the staff that are going to talk tonight know that they're doing a really great job. I think they would love to hear that and see that. So you also might see comments, I think, already in the chat from Amy Mather. She is Omaha Public Library's Adult Services Manager. She's going to manage the chat tonight. So if you have questions just about general Crowdcast stuff or the event, she's going to answer them for you. She's also going to send you helpful information in the chat, like links to things that we're talking about, and she's going to send you links to all the books that we're talking about. And she's also going to let you know if you were able to pick up a book bash guide. She's going to tell you what page the book talkers are on when they're going through their titles. If you have questions about specific titles, or if you have questions for the book talkers that you're hearing about tonight, you can put those straight into the Q&A. Those we will answer at the end of the night before we close out. One thing. Shortly after I do my intro, in the middle of your screen, a little button's going to pop up that says, enter here to win prizes. That is our survey for our prizes tonight. So we're going to give those away at the end. We have 10 prizes. We have 5 book bundles that are selections of the titles that we're going to hear about tonight. There's 3 titles in each of those bundles. We also have 3 $25 gift cards to the Bookworm. And we have 2 one-year memberships to Dundee Book Company, which gives you 20% off all purchases in their online store and also their physical location, which is about to open up in Dundee. So once you see that little button pop up in the middle of your screen, click on it, fill it out before the end of our intermission, and that'll get you entered for prizes. It will just be a couple quick questions and your information for prizes. Okay. So that's all my real housekeeping stuff. I'm going to tell you about what tonight's going to look like. So last February, we hosted our first in-person book bash. It was down here at Main Library. We had drinks, food. We had about 85 attendees, which is as many people as we could fit here. And everybody got to sit around tables and they got to chat. And then Omaha Public Library librarians came around and talked to them about books that they're really excited about. So tonight is our best approximation of that event, but on a virtual platform. So we can't feed you, we can't give you drinks, but we can talk to you about a bunch of books, tell you things that we're excited about, and let you win some prizes, hopefully. So our goal is the same. We hope that you walk away with a list of books that you're excited to read, that you get to chat, at least virtually, with other attendees, and that you're excited about some of the OPL programs and services that you hear about tonight. Once I'm done talking, you're going to hear from 7 OPL staff members. You might hear me call these folks book talkers. So each book talker is going to spend 6 to 10 minutes telling you about a handful of titles that they're really excited about. These might be new, these might be older or forthcoming. They're going to be different genres. And you're going to hear from the first 4 book talkers. We'll take a really short, like 5 to 7 minute intermission. And then after the intermission, we'll be back with 3 book talkers. Then we'll do our Q&A and we'll close out with prize winners at the end of the night. So throughout the night, you're probably going to hear about a couple different OPL services. The first is, hopefully you've heard about OPL's Reading Challenge. So this is a group of 12 challenges designed to help you broaden your reading horizons. So you'll find info about those challenges on the OPL website, or if you haven't already, you can go to your local branch and pick out one of these really amazing little notebooks that tells you about each of the challenges, and you can keep all your notes in it. Book talkers might reference or recommend specific titles for challenges within that notebook, so you might hear them mention it that way. You also might hear mention of the book club bag collection. This is a collection of titles that we've curated specifically for book clubs. So each book club bag has 10 to 12 titles or copies of a title, along with a discussion guide And you can check these out just like our regular items and then use them with your own book club. Last thing you might hear mentioned is OPL's podcast, The Book Drop. If you're not familiar with The Book Drop, this is a weekly podcast hosted by OPL staff members, all of who you're going to hear from tonight. If you're not familiar, each week we talk about a new genre or topic of the book world, and then we share basically our love of reading. And you can find more information about The Book Drop on OPL's website, or just search for The Book Drop on your favorite podcast app. So you might hear book talkers reference that they're part of the Book Drop team, or they might reference books that were mentioned on the podcast, because that's one of our challenges this year. Okay, that's my long spiel. I hope you guys all have a great evening. Please talk in the chat amongst yourselves. We want to know what you're excited about that you're hearing. And I'm about to bring up our first book talker. Don't forget to fill out that survey once you see it pop up at the bottom. You're good to go, Anna.
Oh, great. Okay, I thought I might still be muted. Hi, I'm Anna. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I am the Diversity and Inclusion Librarian for OPL. I work out of the South Omaha branch, and I'm also on the podcast, so you might recognize my voice. This is my face. So if you listen to the book drop, I am happy to be part of that team, which is great. I believe I'm on page number 13 of your booklet if you're following along via that method. So I wanted to start off with one of the favorite books I read this past year, mostly because it was, I think, the read that gave me the most joy. It's a book of poetry. It's called Homie by Donna Smith, and it acknowledges political division, racism, and HIV positivity, but it's deeply anchored in friendship. That's the whole theme of this book. His poems maintain a buoyant exuberance and hope, which is kind of a miracle to me given the amount of difficult subject matter that he talks about in this book. But he relies on those friendships to carry them through the world, and these poems are an ode to that transformative power of those relationships. The writing is complex, it's bold, and it's enthusiastic throughout, and reading these poems is a really wonderful reminder that you can choose to focus on joy, even with all of the other things that are happening in our world. So, and it's also helped to remind me to check in with my family and friends. So if you need a reminder about the good that is all around us still, you should pick this one up. It's also great if you like Ta-Nehisi Coates or Ocean Vuong. If you're doing the reading challenge, this would meet the poetry and verse category for that, and it's available in print and ebook formats at our libraries. My next book is called Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. I didn't mention Homie came out in 2020. This book came out in 2019. And whereas Homie is really powerful in its energy, this book is really powerful in its intimacy. I think if you identify as a woman, this book really makes you think a lot about what that means, and it makes you kind of consider the variety of experiences we share in that identity. And if you don't identify as a woman, this book, I think, would help you relate to and appreciate that identity quite a bit more. It's a kaleidoscopic novel that it's told from the perspective of multiple characters, and they're all tied together by their relationship to one woman who is the character that starts us out on this book. She is an artist and a playwright and is about to launch a show at a prestigious theater in England. Most of the characters live in England. A few leave and come back, but that's the geographical center of the story. Each woman gets a turn to share their story in the book, and they're all related to this playwright either by blood, by chance, by school or work, or sometimes, just by chance. So the novel culminates in the staging of her play, and we get to see how the characters interact with each other for the first time and see how they've impacted each other's lives. It's a really quietly powerful and introspective novel, and it gives you a lot to think about after you're done reading. If you like really reflective and authentic characters, similar to those in Ali Smith novels, this is a book you should consider picking up. Reading challenge, again, this is one that would meet the criteria for an award winner. It won the Booker Prize in 2020. And we have this in print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook formats at OPL. My next one is called The Five Wounds by Kirsten Valdez-Quaid, and this is actually not out yet. It comes out this year in April, so not too much longer, but it is available in our catalog already in print format if you want to put a hold on it if it sounds appealing to you. So it's a work of fiction. Amadeo Padilla is unemployed, drunk, single, and he's trying to get his life together in a small New Mexico town. And one afternoon, his estranged 15-year-old daughter shows up and she happens to be pregnant. She announces that she's moving in, and the story evolves from there. We learn more about Amadeo and his daughter, his tough and charming mother, and they all have an attempted path at redemption throughout the novel. Our characters try and fail, but they don't quit trying. The character progression in this story is really organic and it's really satisfying, and it's also very, very human. You'll follow the family through the first pretty messy year of the baby's life, and you finish the book wanting to hear more about how they're doing in the future. If you're a Roxane Gay fan, this is going to be her book club pick for July, and the print version, like I said, will be available in April if publishing schedules hold. We'll see. Now for something completely different, I have another work of fiction. This is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. It came out in 2019. And this is a really grim fantasy novel. It opens with a very action-packed sequence, and it doesn't really stop to take its breath from that point on. It's the story of Tracker, who is the Red Wolf of the title, and he's a mercenary for hire, and he's known for his powerful sense of smell. He's asked to find a missing child prince, and in pretty classic like fantasy slash adventure style, he is forced to make uneasy alliances with a ragtag group of witches, shapeshifters, and other soldiers. This story bounces back and forth over time, which might take some readers a little getting used to, and we learn more about Tracker's backstory as the novel progresses. James immerses us into a really beautiful African-inspired world of monsters and gods, vivid environments, and it's a pretty intense read. It's not for the faint of heart. If you're sensitive to violence, maybe don't pick this one up. It's pretty brutal, but it's also pretty compelling. James referred to this book as the African Game of Thrones, and it's the first in a planned trilogy, and Michael B. Jordan has already purchased the rights to it, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see this on some sort of screen in the next couple of years. So if you enjoyed the Game of Thrones television series or the books, you might like this book too. For the reading challenge, it is a book that was mentioned on the podcast, and it's available in pretty much every format at OPL. We have it in print, ebook, downloadable audiobook, and audiobook in CD format. My next book is called The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. And this is a thoughtful, epic work of fiction about family and friendship marked by the trauma of a pandemic. And it's not this one, it's the AIDS pandemic of the 1980s. This is set in Chicago and Paris, and it moves across decades. And we begin the story by meeting a tight-knit group of friends in Chicago's gay community. And this is kind of just before the disease has begun to take its really awful and terrible hold. So while this book is about like a completely different kind of pandemic, there are some passages in it about folks dying alone that will really hit home. This book really painfully captures the stigma attached to AIDS, but at the same time, it finds a lot of beauty and joy in the present. You'll be left feeling hopeful at the end of this book. It's a heavily character-driven story, and you'll find yourself either cheering on or cursing the decisions that they make throughout. You become very invested in them. If you liked A Little Life or The Goldfinch, you might like this one too. It's another award winner for the Reading Challenge. It won the Stonewall Book Award in 2019, and we have it available in print, ebook, audiobook, and as a book club bag. This would be a really great book for a book club bag discussion. There's a lot to unpack in it here. My last book is nonfiction work. It's called Minor Feelings, An Asian American Reckoning by Kathy Park Hong. And this book addresses the flattening, really, of the Asian American experience with facts, humor, and smartly placed anger. It blends memoir, criticism, and history together to really memorable effect. Hong is a poet, and her facility with language really shines through in this book, and I am really selfishly hoping that she writes more things like this for us to read. She forces readers to quit thinking about Asians as a homogenous group and as the model minority stereotype. She considers societal and systemic racism through this lens and then filters that through discussions of everything from art school to Richard Pryor. This is a perfect read for anyone that's doing the work of educating themselves through anti-racist literature, or if you just want to better understand the particular challenges that Asian Americans face. If you're doing the reading challenge, this would meet two of the different categories mentioned on the podcast, and it's also a 2020 top shelf pick. And we have it in print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook formats. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you read and enjoy these books. Thanks.
Thanks, Anna. Great job. Next up, I'm going to bring up Melanie.
Hello, I am Melanie Schultz, and I work here at the W. Dale Clark Main Library.
The books that I'm going to share with you tonight start on page 5 of the little booklet. The first book I'm going to talk about tonight is called Transcendent Kingdom by Yad Jesse. And I want to start off by saying that sometimes it is fine to choose a book by its cover. And this is one of my favorite covers from last year. That gold foil is just so beautiful. But on to the actual book. So the author wrote the New York Times bestseller historical fiction Homegoing a few years ago. And this time she's written a contemporary introspective story that follows a family of Ghanaian immigrants. Gifty, the main character, is studying neuroscience at Stanford as her mother struggles with depression after the recent death of her son and Gifty's brother from drug overdose. Gifty still feels a really strong connection to her religious upbringing that she is starting to find at odds with her faith in science through the research she's doing. The story follows this, as well as her relationship with her mother, who has recently moved in with her. The story also takes the reader through Gifty's childhood and brings a deeper connection to the character through learning how her experiences have shaped her life. The author's lyrical and engaging writing brings many themes, grief, faith, science, and immigrant experiences together in this moving work. It's a wonderful choice for literary fiction fans and for book clubs. Her writing is beautiful, and the story explores family and relationships and mental health and addiction in such emotionally powerful ways. The library has this title in print book, audiobook, large print, ebook, e-audiobook, pretty much all the formats, including a book club bag. And if you're doing the reading challenge, this title will work for the 2020 Top Shelf or for the Immigrant Experience Challenges. The next title I have for you tonight is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is a book that I just never wanted to put down while I was reading it. Some of you may already be familiar with it, but in case you're not, Such a Fun Age is a powerful coming-of-age story that explores race, privilege, class, and relationships. The book hooks you in right away in the opening scene where Amira, a young Black babysitter, has been asked by her employer, Alex, a white upper-middle-class woman, to take her daughter out of the house one night while she and her husband handle a semi-emergency. So Amira takes the young child over to a grocery store around the corner in their neighborhood, and while there, she starts kind of singing and dancing with the girl to try to have some fun, and a customer sees them, pulls security over, and is concerned that Amira has kidnapped the girl. I don't want to give too much more away of what happens next because the scene sets the basis for a lot of what takes place throughout the rest of the novel, but Amira does continue to be employed by Alex afterward, and when details about Alex's past emerge, Amira will never look at her the same again. This compulsive debut novel is witty, smart, and relevant, and would offer great discussions for book clubs also. The library has this also in pretty much all the formats: print, large print, ebook, audiobook, book club bag, and if you're doing the reading challenge, this book would count for the mentioned on the Book Drop podcast and multiple points of view challenges. It's a great pick for fans of Brooke Bennett's The Vanishing Half, and the author is also working on the screenplay for Lena Waithe's production company, so I don't think the interest of it is going to be going away anytime soon. The next book I have, another beautiful cover. It's a beautiful Own Voices short story collection, Sabrina and Karina, by Kali Farhado Onstein. This came out in 2019, and each story involves a different Latina woman of Indigenous ancestry who lives in or around Denver, Colorado. I might be partial to it because I lived in Denver for a few years, but even if you aren't familiar with the city, I believe that readers will find these stories stunning and captivating, and the girls and women that the author has created just feel so real and honest. Each one of them with their own challenges and struggles and longing to understand more or strive for a better life. It's at times both heart-wrenching and hopeful. It's a page-turning read. And if it's been a while since you've tried a short story collection, I strongly encourage you to give it a try with this one. If you're doing the reading challenge, it counts for a book that won an award. It won a 2020 American Book Award. And the library has it in print, ebook, and e-audiobook formats. Moving on to a little bit of a lighter read, Aisha at Last by Uzma Jalaluddin. This is a debut novel, and it's a modern retelling of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, set in an Indian Muslim community in Toronto. The main character, Aisha, is a poet and a high school teacher who mostly just has that teaching job to help pay off debts to her wealthy uncle. Her younger cousin Hafsa is out busy meeting potential husbands, and she's so busy that she cannot organize an event for Muslim youth that she had promised to help with, and so she sends Aisha in her place. While there, Aisha runs into Khalid, a devout Muslim computer programmer with very conservative viewpoints. She had met him earlier at a poetry event, and the two really did not get along. Even though she would love to never see him again, Aisha somehow keeps running into him in multiple areas of her life. And maybe she's starting to have feelings for him. So if you're familiar with Pride and Prejudice, he is definitely Mr. Darcy to her Elizabeth Bennet. There's a great, fairly large cast of characters that all come together in fun ways, but it never takes away from the main storyline. It brings an update to Pride and Prejudice with its look into young Muslims in an urban setting, but the heartwarming, witty, and endearing feelings from Jane Austen's work remain. The library has this in print book, ebook, and e-audiobook format. I personally listened to the audiobook, and the narrator was great. This would fulfill the read a book mentioned on the Book Drop Podcast Challenge, as well as the Immigrant Experience Challenge. And the author will also have a new book coming out in April called Hana Khan Carries On. So if you enjoy this one, you can look for that one as well. Moving on to my nonfiction picks, The Undocumented Americans by Carla Conejo Villavicencio. She writes of her own story of being an undocumented immigrant at the time of writing, with an intimate look into the daily lives of other undocumented Americans in 5 cities: Cleveland, Flint, New Haven, New York, and Miami. The Ivy-educated author combines interviews and experiences with undocumented Americans, like those who were on the 9/11 cleanup crews, along with her own history and family. She gives a day-to-day view of what life is like for them, along with the stories of her personal trauma and her abandonment by her parents when at 5 years old, they left her in Ecuador so they could move to New York and earn enough money to send her back to the US. She's quoted as saying that she wanted this book to push back against the one-dimensional caricature she saw of Latinx and undocumented people, and that she wanted to shift focus to older immigrants who she feels are often erased or reduced to job descriptions. This is an impassioned collective biography, which, as she describes it, is creative nonfiction rooted in careful reporting, translated as poetry, shared by chosen family, and sometimes hard to read. It's a powerful, affecting work full of people that will be hard to forget after hearing their stories. The library has this book in print book, ebook, and downloadable audiobook, and it would fulfill the 2020 Top Shelf or Immigrant Experience Challenges. And my last book is called For Small Creatures Such as We, Rituals for Finding Meaning in Our Unlikely World by Sasha Sagan. This is a concise but moving memoir/science/history book, and Sagan, who's the daughter of Carl Sagan and Andrian, explores rituals, celebrations, connections to each other and our planet from a scientific and secular lens. The title comes from the beautiful quote from her father's book Contact that says, "For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love." Sagan was inspired to study traditions and holidays when her daughter was born, and she started to think more about how we honor our ancestors in ways that don't require a religious framework. Written as if she's taking us through a life, starting with birth and spring, moving into coming of age, summer, birthdays, weddings, autumn, winter, and death, she explores different traditions surrounding those moments and how we all long for connection to nature and each other. As she writes in the book, religion at its best facilitates empathy, gratitude, and awe. Science at its best reveals true grandeur beyond our wildest dreams. My hope is that I can merge these into some new thing that will serve my daughter, my family, and you as we navigate and celebrate the mysterious beauty and terror of being alive in our universe. This has definitely been one of my favorite nonfiction reads ever. It's just really stuck with me. And I think that this book would be great for those interested in historical meanings behind traditions, or those who want to read a thought-provoking book about some of the wonders of our universe. And the library has a print copy of it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Melanie. Okay, up next is Ellie.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited to talk to y'all about some books tonight. I am on page 10 of the booklet, and my name is Ellie. I work at our Milton R. Abrahams branch, and you also might recognize my voice from the Book Drop podcast with Anna. Let's get right into it. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about is called Dial A for Aunties. This one is by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and it comes out April 27th, but we already have it in the catalog, so you can start placing holds now. This one is a mystery. It's a little bit of rom-com and some family drama. It's kind of one of those books that has it all. People are calling it Crazy Rich Asians meets Weekend at Bernie's with a dash of 2001's The Wedding Planner. In this book, Medlin's blind date ends the worst way possible, and a panic call to her mother turns the whole situation into a family affair. Soon, what should be a simple body-burying endeavor involves the whole Chan clan, bringing new meaning to their family business slogan, which is, "Don't leave your big day to chance, leave it to the Chans." Decades-old sibling rivalries broil under the surface as Medlin and her aunties do their best to pull off the wedding of the century the next day, which is sure to poise them as the premier service for the Indo-Chinese community as long as no one brings up the dead body that is very literally in the closet. If that isn't enough, Sutanto throws in a series of inconvenient appearances by Medlin's secret one-who-got-away college boyfriend and a heist subplot just to keep things a-moving. This book has a super original plot. It's so entertaining. The tone is really witty and heartfelt. So if you're looking for something charming and just an ideal escapist read, place that hold on Dial A for Aunties now. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about some nonfiction. So the next book I'm going to tell you about is called Goodbye Again by Johnny Sun. This one would count for our Book with Illustrations challenge, and it comes out next month, so you'll get it a little bit sooner. Right now we have it in print format in the catalog, but we might have it in other ones later, so always check back for those. So this is, like I said, nonfiction. It consists of a bunch of micro essays. All of them are like 3 pages long, and according to Sun, they're about saying goodbye to places you once belonged, the myths of finding solace in work, and the joy in small things. There's also one about different egg recipes that turns into an existential crisis and then ends up as a story about kinship, connection, and growth. If you spent a lot of time thinking about your houseplants this year, this book is for you. Sun's writing is precise and simple. He imbues everyday observations and actions with meaning that makes you feel connected to your own environment and maybe look at it in a different way. It kind of feels like a tech cleanse when you're reading it. It's got uncomplicated, peaceful little doodle-like illustrations that are so sweet. The mood of this book to me is a good cry that you didn't realize you needed, or catching up with a friend and it lasts like 3 hours longer than you expected. So if that is what you need from your books right now, then pick that one up. We're going to continue on with some nonfiction. Oh, I am so happy about this book. It is called The Book of Eels, Our Enduring Fascination with the Most Mysterious Creatures in the Natural World. It's by Patrick Svensson. It's already out, so you can get on that hold list and it'll get there a lot quicker this time. And we have it in both print and ebook format. This one works for our Book About Animals challenge, and as the winner of the National Outdoor Book Award and the August Prize, which is Sweden's most prestigious literary award, it counts for the book that won an award challenge. So some quick fun facts about eels. European eels travel from saltwater to freshwater and then back to saltwater throughout the course of their lives. And also, no one in all of human history has witnessed them mate or give birth, which is wild. These facts have inspired centuries of research and thought into what scientists call the eel question. Where do eels come from? What are they? Are they fish or some other kind of animal? And while they're using the eel question to refer to more than one question, I would like to add a couple of my own, including what? Excuse me, and how am I only hearing about this now? The personal crisis this book Cosme aside, it's one of those really wonderful treats of nature writing that combines science and history, and also Svensson's own reflections on growing up working class in Sweden. You'll learn about the role that the eel played in the survival of the Mayflower's Puritan passengers. You'll hear about an exceptionally strange fishing technique that I can only describe as big ol' gross ball of worms, and that Svensson suspects that the summer a young Sigmund Freud spent unsuccessfully dissecting hundreds of eels in search for a male specimen may say something about his later penning of the theory of penis envy. This book is full of quirky facts, but all of that aside, the European eel's endangered status in Sweden could make this a controversial and fraught book, but it's been universally praised by both fishermen and conservationists, which is just a huge compliment to it. Svensson said, "We need enigmas. We need questions that aren't answered yet. Eels argue with our confidence that the world is explained." So if that's the read you're looking for, then definitely check out The Book of Eels. Okay, next we're gonna plan your summer read, which is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Delilah Harris. This one comes out on June 1st, and right now we have it as a print book, but again, I expect we'll probably have it in some other formats, but we'll see. So do you think that you miss working in an office right now? This book will cure you of that. It's a workplace thriller and satire. People are calling it Devil Wears Prada meets Get Out, but I would also throw in a little bit of the classic book Valley of the Dolls into that description. You follow Nella, who is an editorial assistant at Wagner Books and who is very tired of being the token Black employee there. So she's enormously relieved when she meets Harlem-born and bred Hazel, who starts working in the cubicle beside hers. They've only made the first attempts at friendship when a string of uncomfortable meetings rockets Hazel to office darling status, and Nella is left scrambling. To make matters much, much worse, she finds a note on her desk that reads, "Leave Wagner now." Did Hazel get one too? Or could it be from Hazel? And what could its mysterious author know that Nella doesn't? The author of this book has spent nearly 3 years in a position like Nella's at a publishing house. So if you're curious about the publishing world, you may learn a little bit about it in this blend of suspense and cultural commentary with just a splash of horror. All right, let's get into a little more speculative fiction. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sorrowland, which I just finished like 2 weeks ago, and I absolutely loved. It comes out on March 11th, which is way sooner than most of my books. So you can get this one really, really quick. If you are a reader of Ursula K. Le Guin, N.K. Jemisin, Octavia Butler, Margaret Atwood, or Zora Neale Hurston, listen up, because I think this book is for you. It is genre-bending speculative fiction. It's a little bit thriller, a little bit fantasy, a touch of horror, and maybe a superhero origin story. You follow Vern, an albino 15-year-old who was raised in a cult called the Blessed Acres of Cain, as she escapes into the woods to birth her twin boys, Howling and Feral. She builds a safe, sustainable, and secret life tucked away in the woods. But has she gone far enough to escape the influence of the man who controlled the world she once knew? When macabre visions begin to appear to her, and she develops both supernatural strength and a rash that appears a little more amphibious than diseased, Vern suspects that there is more to the Blessed Acres enterprise than an attempt to shield its all-Black populace from the perils of whiteness. What have they done to her? And more importantly, what can she do now to secure a future for Howling, for Feral, and for herself? This book is an atmospherically gothic adventure. It's survivalist, us against the world fiction about how marginalized folks get free, and it's short. It really packs it into I think about 250 pages. So you're not committing to a lot, and it is maybe going to be one of my favorite reads of the year. The last book I'm going to tell you about is one of my favorite reads of last year. It's definitely my most recommended book of 2020, and it followed a big trend of what readers wanted, which is please give us something to read that feels good. So I'm going to tell you about The House in the Cerulean Sea. Oh no, I didn't show you the cover. Sorrowland has this really cool cover. And The House in the Cerulean Sea also has a very cool but different cover. So, like I said, this one is by TJ Klune, and we have it in all the formats. We have it in print, we have it in ebook, we have it in downloadable audiobook, and we have it in book bag. I think this would be a really great pick for your book club. And it was mentioned on the book drop, so you can use it for that challenge. This is from this tiny subgenre of hope punk, which is a very sweet little part of books. Hope punk says that genuinely and sincerely caring about something requires bravery and strength. It's about standing up for other people, demanding a better, kinder world, and truly believing that we can get there if we care about each other as hard as we possibly can. This genre is perfect if you're looking to read something that feels like the shows The Good Place, Parks and Rec, or Pose. So in this selection, you follow Linus Baker, who is the most boring caseworker in the Department of Magical Youth. On orders from extremely upper management, he investigates a small and peacefully unconventional orphanage run by the charming, proper, and a little bit disarming Arthur Parnassus. Though Arthur seems uniquely adept at caring for his charges, which include Talia the Gnome, Theodore the Wyvern, which means small dragon, and Chauncey, an amorphous blob whose parentage is unknown, they would pose a challenge to even the most experienced in his profession, and those three are by far the less chaotic half of his wards. Can Arthur convince by-the-book Linus that their unorthodox home is what allows these orphans to thrive, or will their eccentricities be their community's undoing? If you love stories with chosen families, misunderstood outcasts, opposites attract, and scary children with hearts of gold tropes, I'm so happy because this book is the one for you. Kick off your boots, settle in by the fireplace, a virtual one will do just fine, and prepare your heart to be warmed in The House in the Cerulean Sea. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ellie. My face hurts from silently laughing, so good job. I'm bringing up Jake next.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Lee. I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the Millard Branch Library. I'm also the Senior Services Librarian for the Omaha Public Library System. And my first book tonight is a biography. I chose this particular title for my own personal reading because I wanted something about a book that would fit our 2021 book challenge. I don't know why I can't remember the challenge. And it's You Never Forget Your First, which is all a biography on George Washington. This was also featured on the Book Drop podcast. And if you're just trying to see what you can get in on the reading challenge, it also would work for a person you'd like to meet, which that's my person I would like to meet. And I really hadn't thought about it before, but I wanted a really short biography. And the reason being is biographies are not a series or a genre that I read a whole lot of. And I wanted something that was a little bit lighter, a little bit more engaging. I wasn't really concerned with facts about battles or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to know about that person's life. And I really feel like this biography hits on that perfectly. It was written by Alexis Coe, and therefore it's one of those rare biographies, especially biographies about Washington, that's written by someone who represents themselves as female. So I feel like that was really great, and their introduction also touches on that a lot, talking about how that a lot of biographies written by, or biographies about presidents are kind of written by predominantly white men. Incidentally, in her research, she'd really noticed that a lot of these biographers were very obsessed with his thigh muscles for some weird reason. It's just a weird theme that kept coming across. And there's no thigh talk in this particular. You're safe from George Washington's thighs in this one. In the intro to this book, which I highly recommend that you read the introduction, because it also addresses some of the more kind of silly stuff that we think about George Washington, like how he had wooden teeth and he cut down a cherry tree. All of that is not true. It's kind of early American propaganda, really to kind of help promote George Washington as this really kind of American folk hero that he eventually turned into over time. One of the things also that I don't ever remember hearing when I was in high school history class is the fact that he is the number one reason why we got into the French and Indian War during the early American settler times. And I mean, that realistically was the very first World War because it tied in so many other countries. Blew my mind. I totally didn't know that. And there's a lot of little stuff like that in here. So if you're looking for an in-depth biography on George Washington, I would say this is not going to be it. Your Ron Chernow, that stuff's going to be way better if you really want to dig in to George Washington. But if you're just looking for something a little lighter, like this is only like 260 pages. This is a great one. So we have it as a print book, a downloadable audiobook, and an ebook. All right. So my next book really doesn't need a whole lot of help as far as getting the eyeballs on it, and that's Lucy Foley's The Guest List. So I'm going to assume that there's quite a few people out there tonight that have actually read The Guest List, because I couldn't get a physical copy to show you because they are all checked out. As a matter of fact, today I gave someone a copy of this book and said, I think you're going to like this, because they're super into suspense thrillers. This also happens to be on Reese Witherspoon's book club. It's got an award that way. It's got a lot of accolades. I think there's probably even a movie on the way. Who knows? Usually that sort of stuff happens. But it is a story about this kind of up and coming magazine editor. It's fiction. It's not it's not nonfiction. So it's this magazine editor and this handsome TV star. They fall in love, fairy tale wedding, and they decide they're going to have it on this remote desert island off the coast of Ireland, in this kind of amazing castle-like experience. And, you know, what could go wrong in a remote place with no Wi-Fi and spotty electricity and a creepy couple that lives there who takes care of the grounds. But it's told in different perspectives. There's 6 main kind of characters that they hop between: the bride, the groom, the bridesmaid, the plus one, the best man, and the wedding planner. And so it'll jump between them, also in between different times of this weekend, this crazy weekend that you're reading about. To me, the main feature of this book is that it is a slow burn. Don't expect things to kind of kick off with the kind of energy that you're, especially if you're used to reading like Brad Thor, those kind of thrillers, the really action oriented. This is a little more sinister. This is almost a mystery. Like, there's not an investigator, but there is definitely something going on. There's something creepy in the woodshed kind of feels and vibes. There's a lot of red herrings, and almost everyone's an unreliable narrator. So I guess it all fits right in with kind of that Agatha Christie vibe. No offense to Agatha Christie. I love her books. We have this as a book club bag. And I think this would make an awesome book club discussion, because there's just so much to talk about in this book. And what happens between as the day goes on, you start to see all these different threads weave together, and how all these terrible people just kind of fall apart over time. It's a great book. We have it in pretty much every single format you could want, including a book club bag. And it would fall under, for the 2021 Reading Challenge, a Book Drop podcast listing, an OPL 2020 Top Shelf book, which is where I saw it. That's how I got the idea to read it. In a book that's told from multiple viewpoints, and even one that's won an award. So yeah, The Guest List. Next up is kind of my uncommon one. I had to buy this copy because we only own 2 copies of this particular translation of Beowulf by Maria Devana Headley. But I really love this for being kind of almost silly, but also I understand it way more than I did when I read it in high school. So Maria Devane Headley, long story short, she wrote a book that kind of takes the Beowulf theme. It's called The Mare Wife, and takes that from that kind of prehistory era and puts it into modern day. I'm not going to go into that book. We own that book. If you want to read that book, I've heard it's very good. But this particular title, its main claim to fame is that the author took the translation and tried to kind of breathe a little bit extra life into it, add in some modern colloquialisms, throw in some different rhyming schemes than would have been prudent during the time. So I'm just going to read a short quote from the very beginning of this particular version of Beowulf. Bro, tell me we still know how to speak of kings. In the old days, everyone knew what men were: brave, bold, glory-bound. Only stories now, but I'll sound the Spear Dane's song, hoarded for hungry times. So, sounds dope. I really like this book. And I thought I understood Beowulf, and I think that this particular title really helped me to understand it much, much deeper. In the end, the story is kind of just about a broy dude kind of bragging about himself and his friends, and then they sail around the world and go kill stuff. So it's super fun. We have it as a print book and an ebook only. I should mention that. And this is very clearly would fill a book on poetry or a novel in verse. So I hope you give it a shot. It's different. It's fun. Last but not least is probably my favorite fiction book that I read for this, or not even for this event, but last year into this year, was Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I talked about Uprooted last year at our book bash, and I love that book too. This is kind of a spiritual sequel to it because it doesn't take those characters from Uprooted. That is a standalone title, but it takes the idea and applies it to the Rumpelstiltskin, that particular fable or fairy tale. It hasn't won a ton of awards, but it did win the American Library Association's Alex Award in 2019. It came out in 2018, FYI, so it is a little bit older. Which, by the way, that award is is a book that's written for adults, but would also appeal to someone between the ages of 12 and 18. It's very specific. So this is the story of the daughter of a young daughter of a Jewish moneylender who, because her father is very reticent to collect the money, which kind of is counterproductive to money lending, she takes on the family business, and she is so good at it that she brags to her mother one day while riding in a sled that she could turn silver to gold. Well, little did she know that the very mysterious and evil Stark, who are they kind of remind me of the ice people from Game of Thrones. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's those people. So they come and they bring her magic silver, and they say, all right, we need you to turn this into gold. And through her money lending efforts, she does find that. But eventually she gets wrapped up in a way bigger story, and things kind of tumble out of her control. And it's just kind of about surviving against this weird alien threat, and as well as the relationships that she kind of builds along the way. What I love about Naomi Novik's stories is that I'm not super familiar with Eastern European folk stories and their fairy tales, and this just runs that vibe so well. And I really, really enjoy that. It occasionally has a little bit of romance in there, a little bit of action, really strong female characters. To me, Spinning Silver is such a great story, and it's just a super fun read. We have this as a print book, an ebook, and a downloadable audiobook. And this would still fit in for this year's 2021 reading challenge. So it does have multiple points of view, so it'd fit on that one. And thank you, ALA, for winning an award. So that fits on that one too. But thank you, everyone. And I just had 4. So I hope that was great.
Thanks, Jake. Okay, folks, that's our first half. We're going to take an intermission here in just a couple of minutes. But first, before we let these book talkers go, I would say, Use your emojis down in the chat. Tell them they did a good job. Give them some little emoji collabs. I will also ask this question at the end, but I want to know what book you are most excited about so far. I feel like this is a competition between the book talkers. Like it was a point of pride last year for the person who had the response that people were most excited about their book. So let them know. We're just going to run a slideshow for just 5 minutes so we can prep for the next group, and we will be back. And this is a great time to fill out that survey. I will pull those prize winners shortly after this intermission. Okay, hi folks. You should be able to hear and see me again. We are back from our short intermission. Thanks for taking a break with us. So we have 3 more book talkers before we end the night. If you haven't already, please fill out that survey. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a green button that says enter here to win prizes. Click on that. That'll take you to the survey. Amy also has posted it into the chat if you can't see the button at the bottom. So fill that out before the end of our first book talker, who's Michelle. So I'm going to pull winners after Michelle is done talking. Okay, we are ready to go. We're going to pull up our next book talker.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Carlson, and I'm the book club librarian, and I work out at the Willa Cather branch. Very excited to talk to you about some really fun books. My first one is The Project. Okay, so raise your hand if you want a novel that shatters your emotions and gets your adrenaline going. So this is what I'm recommending to you, The Project by acclaimed author Courtney Summers. Estranged sisters, Lo and Bee Dunham, haven't seen each other since they lost their parents in a car accident. While Lo was recovering in the hospital, Bee becomes enthralled with this mysterious savior man. She abandons her sister and is fully indoctrinated by a group called the Unity Project. Lo grows up without ever speaking to her sister. After a strange young man who seems to know Lo kills himself on the subway tracks in front of her, she becomes obsessed with exposing the Unity Project as a cult and vies to reconnect with her sister. Told in alternating timelines, we learn of Bee's time with the Unity Project and how Lo immerses herself with the group. Lo is dogged in discovering what the Unity Project really does, but after meeting members, she wonders, maybe it isn't as bad as it seems? Courtney Summers is truly impeccable with this gripping narrative and will keep you seeking the truth until the very end. If you read Sadie, also by Courtney Summers, The Project is a must for your TBR shortlist. And I highly recommend this compelling and successful psychological thriller for everyone. Released just this month, we have it on print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook. Okay. So for the Read a Book About Animals reading challenge, I am so happy to recommend Animal Spirit by Francesca Marciano. This collection of short stories explores the idea of how animals change the dynamic of our human interactions. In the title story, 2 couples are on vacation in Greece. Wouldn't that be lovely right now? It's a bit fraught in their relationships, and on the way back from an awkward dinner, they nearly run over a stray dog. The choice to take the dog home with them or leave him behind shifts their communication and connection. So each of the 6 short stories in here dive into different types of love and connection, family, romantic, and with ourselves. And it includes some sort of animal metaphor, which is very thought-provoking and worthy of some rumination. I have absolutely fallen in love with Marciano's writing. She has a beautiful way of developing characters with such light, airy prose. It was really a dream for escapism, and it just felt like I was watching a movie. It's compulsively readable, and the conclusion of each story is satisfying yet ambiguous. I'm recommending this for fans of literary dramas, and if you don't mind sarcasm or a sardonic tone, then this is one for you also. Truly compelling and memorable stories that I really hope you check out. Okay. So in these unprecedented times, we've all spent time with one person more than we ever thought we would. And that special someone is you. Now, this one-on-one time has brought a lot of mixed feelings for myself and my journey. So thanks to famed astrologer Chani Nicholas, I was able to find more comfort and love for myself, which is something I want for everyone. If you were In You Were Born for This, Astrology for Radical Self-Acceptance, the internet's favorite astrologer lays out a guide to understanding your birth chart and starting your journey to letting yourself know it's okay to be who you are. Nicholas shares the various aspects of understanding your chart, like why it matters that Saturn was in the 10th house when you were born, and then also provides thoughtful reflection questions and powerful affirmations, which are invaluable tools to help it all soak in and make sense. I had a really amazing experience reading this. I felt seen and was able to take a deep look at my past, present, and future desires. If astrology speaks to you, your chart can be a shortcut to learning about your unique self. So grab a notebook, a pen, and a copy of You Were Born for This by Channing Nicholas and start your radical self-acceptance journey today. And I also recommend Channing's self-titled app. All right. Phoebe Robinson is a person I definitely want to meet one day. So for the Read a Book by or about a person you'd like to meet reading challenge, I recommend You Can't Touch My Hair and Other Things I Still Have to Explain by Phoebe Robinson. While published in 2016, it is as just, if not more, relevant today. Writer, comedian, podcaster, Black woman, and now publisher, Phoebe Robinson discusses race and feminism in her first essay collection. Using her trademark wit alongside pop culture references galore, we learn about Robinson's college days and early beginnings in writing and comedy. Written with such honesty and humor, you'll be hooked from page 1, hearing about Phoebe's hair journey and embarrassing high school memories. It's part memoir and part history lessons. Robinson infuses Black history along with her own stories. If you are looking to learn more about Black women's experiences in America or are a fan of Samantha Irby and Roxane Gay, pick up this laugh out loud and thought-provoking book. You can check it out in print or ebook, but I highly recommend the downloadable audiobook so you can hear Phoebe's signature laugh and voice. It's so delightful. And as I was scrolling Instagram on my break today, it was just announced Phoebe's second essay collection, Everything's Trash But It's Okay, is in the works for an adaptation on Freeform, so you might want to check out her second book as well. Okay, so I love a thriller, and reading time is precious, and I want something that's going to hook me from page 1 until the very end. And that is when No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole does just that. Born and raised in Brooklyn, Sydney Green has noticed her beloved neighborhood is changing every minute. Longtime neighbors are disappearing and new condos are popping up. To hold on to her community's past and present, Sydney channels her frustration into a walking tour and finds an unlikely and unwanted assistant in one of the new arrivals to the block, her white neighbor, Theo. Their research and relationship throw them both into a dizzying storm of paranoia and fear. What is going on? When does coincidence become conspiracy? Who can you trust? In a story about gentrification told from both Sydney and Theo's perspective, Hello Reading Challenge, book told from multiple points of view, author Alyssa Cole expertly layers both plot twists and builds to this wild and really cinematic finale. With an unflinching look at racism and greed, you will not want to put this down until you get to that last page. A sure bet for any thriller fan, but especially if you picked up My Sister the Serial Killer by Owinka Braithwaite, or if Jake hooked you on The Guest List by Lucy Foley. It's literally available in every format the library has, including a book club bag, so check this one out to discuss with your friends. Okay. And I definitely saved the best for last, or at least the one that I literally want everybody to go and put a hold on now if you don't already have it on hold. And that is You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey, Crazy Stories About Racism by Amber Ruffin and Lacey Lamar. This sister author duo grew up right here in Omaha. While Lacey still lives and works in the state, Amber is in New York as a writer on Late Night with Seth Meyers and now has her own late night show, The Amber Ruffin Show, which streams on Peacock, which is honestly a must watch if you haven't already. And potentially will be on regular TV soon too. Anyways, described as horrifyingly entertaining and hilariously horrifying, Ruffin and Lamar share personal stories about their experiences with colleagues, bosses, mall security, the dreaded HR department, strangers, and police. First off, they are Black women, which is why, unfortunately, those stories can be, among other things, they don't go the way that you think they will sometimes. Secondly, these stories are just wild and really feel unbelievable in the way that we Nebraska nice folks don't want to believe that this stuff happens. But it's true, it all happened, and a majority of the stories are set right here in Omaha. It's possible you may even recognize somebody in the story. I want you to read this because it will absolutely make you think, and it will leave an impact on you. It is a great book club pick because everyone will likely be impacted differently, and there's so much to unpack in these stories. There's a lot of understanding to be gained and an opportunity to be seen. You'll never believe what happened to Lacey is timely and timeless, and each chapter is hilarious and thoughtful, aggravating, comforting, and I seriously cannot recommend this one enough. Read it and get your friends to read it. Like I mentioned, there's a lot to break down, so reserve the book club bag and gather some folks to discuss. It's also available in print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook. I have literally read the print and listened to the audiobook. The sisters read the audiobook, and it is so adorable. So for the reading challenge, it's also set in Nebraska, and you definitely want to meet these adorable sister authors. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Next is David.
Hello, my name is David Dick. I am a specialist at the Abrahams branch. Sometimes I help out at Benson. You might know my voice from the podcast if you're a regular listener. I'm on page 3 of the booklet for those of you following along at home. First book I would like to talk about is The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. It's available through OPL in print and in ebook. It can be used for the Reading Challenge as a book that won an award. It won the 2020 Locus Award for Best Science Fiction Novel, and is a book told from multiple points of view. It's the leisurely paced, weird fiction standalone novel. Has a number of things that I love. It has a queer protagonist, psychic tentacled creatures, pirates, political revolutionaries, travel through desolate wastelands, and found family. Complex characters give the story a strong emotional core, even as the setting is completely alien. The barely inhabitable planet is well realized, making it a great book to sit and savor on a cold night like we had the last couple weeks. That is The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. Next book I would like to talk about is The Ninth House by Lee Bardugo. It's available through OPL in print, audiobook, ebook, downloadable audiobook, and as a book club bag, so pretty much everything. It can be used for the Reading Challenge as a book told from multiple points of view. It's an atmospheric modern fantasy about the dark magical rituals performed by the privileged and the powerful. An ordinary young woman survives a tragic incident and gains the ability to see ghosts, or greys as the novel calls them. As a result, she is recruited by a secret society at Yale to help them clean up the supernatural fallout of their dark occult rites. It's a compelling mystery full of intrigue and twist. Next one I'm going to do is an upcoming one. This is We Are Satellites by Sarah Painsker. Forthcoming through OPL in print. It can be used for the Reading Challenge as a book told from multiple points of view. Classic science fiction writer Frederick Pohl once said a great science fiction story should be able to predict not the automobile, but the traffic jam. Sarah Painsker predicted the long-term social impact of the pandemic with her 2019 debut, A Song for a New Day, which was my favorite book of that year. And now she is predicting the corporate deceptions, the bureaucracy, and the social pressures that will come when we figure out how to put computers into our brains. This book tells the story of a family drawn in different directions over what to do about said cybernetic brain implants. And it does a great job at giving each of them a unique voice and very different perspectives. It's a personal cyberpunk dystopia that focuses on the daily lives of the protagonists. Next title I'm going to talk about is The Dragon Waiting by John Ford. It's available through OPL in print. It can be used for the Reading Challenge as a 2020 top shelf pick, a book mentioned on the Book Drop podcast, a book told from multiple points of view, and is a book that won an award. This time, it was the 1984 World Fantasy Award for Best Novel. However, it's on the 2020 top shelf because it was out of print for a long time. It is finally getting a chance in the sun. If you ever wondered what the War of the Roses would have been like with wizards and vampires, well, then you should pick this one up. It's a forgotten historical fantasy classic that went out of print, and now it's back. It's a very fun mix of historical figures and fictional characters and monsters. Got a really good take on vampires that I love. I would recommend it if you enjoyed Game of Thrones' large cast of characters, mix of the fantastic and the grounded and court intrigue, or if you want a fantasy novel where Richard III is a heroic figure. My next title is available in OPL in print. It can be used for the Reading Challenge as a 2020 top shelf pick, a book mentioned on the Book Drop podcast, and as a book told from multiple points of view. This is the book that led me to coin the phrase swamp goth on the podcast. It's a slow burn that builds in pace and intensity, and it combines folk horror, the Southern Gothic, and crime fiction. The language is both lyrical and creepy, giving the reader some amazing sentences to savor. The human villains eventually become much more threatening and dangerous than the spirits and demons that haunt the bayou. That is Boatman's Daughter. The last one I want to talk about was what was my personal favorite book of 2020. It's available in OPL as print. It can be used for the reading challenge as a book mentioned by someone on the Book Drop podcast, and as a book with illustrations. This is Hell Was Full by Branson Reese. It helped me have a really good cathartic laugh during a really hard year. The comics on their face are just weird and absurd. Can't show most of them. It's not safe for all ages, but here is a bat turning into a butterfly. But it's a collection of datist comics that revel in the absurdity and the obscenity of life. There are a lot of toothy dogs biting animals and people, and it is full of a lot of really twisted and morbid humor. That is Hell Was Full by Branson Reese. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Up next is Maggie. Maggie, take us home.
Right. Hi, everybody. I'm Maggie Peterson. I am an outreach specialist, and I am based out of the main branch. Also, if you would like an update from when my mic was inadvertently unmuted, I did get my popcorn, so for you. To start, so before I even get into anything, I am page 8 in your booklet. I have an 18-month-old. I consume basically all of my books through downloadable audiobooks right now. So everything with the exception of one book I'm about to tell you, I listen to the audiobook version of it. And I don't know about you, but a bad audiobook narrator can make or break a book. And all of these books, in my opinion, had great narrators. So to start with, we have Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. This is a very dreamy fairy tale type book. It opens in turn of the century England along the Thames at a raucous pub party. Everybody's having a great time all the way up until a man bursts through the door with the body of a child he's dug out of the river. Upon examination, they decide that she's dead. She's not breathing. She doesn't have a pulse. They take her to an outbuilding to store the body. And over the course of a few hours, they realize that she actually is alive. And the rest of the story is identifying who this girl actually belongs to. Is she the missing child of a wealthy couple that had been abducted years ago? Is she the granddaughter of a local farming couple whose son has been getting up to no good? Or mysteriously, is she the younger sister of a maid in her 50s who thinks that she's the sister that went missing years ago? There's a lot of kind of ethereal magic themes that weave throughout, but at its core, it's also trying to figure out really what's going on through a midwife and a photographer who were at the pub when this all happened, trying to figure out scientifically really what's happening. This book was great in that I did not anticipate the ending at all, which I feel like is rare these days. I feel like you can kind of guess a lot of endings. We have that in large print, downloadable audiobook, ebook, and a traditional audiobook. Next up is The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mendel. My warning for this book is after you read anything by Emily St. John Mendel, the next few things after you read, if you find even a slight issue with it, you're going to think this book would be a lot better written if it was written by Emily St. John Mendel. She's a great writer. I was introduced to her through Station 11, which came out maybe 5 years ago. And that was very much steeped in sci-fi. This couldn't be further from that, but her beautiful prose remains. In this book, centers around, it starts in Hotel Cayette in a very remote area of Canada. It's a beautiful glass hotel in the middle of the woods. It's an icon. It's amazing. And one night, somebody does a huge bit of graffiti on the glass that faces inward into the hotel that says, "Why don't you swallow broken glass?" It sets into motion a chain of events that you really can't see happening. At the heart of it is Vincent, who was a bartender at the Hotel Cayette, who after the act of vandalism leaves and takes up with the owner of Hotel Cayette as a sort of stand-in wife in this, what she refers to as the land of money. Along the way, you do see the story told from different points of view, and it's an absolutely fascinating look into how money and connection can change and alter lives and actually lead to some kind of tragedies. I don't want to go way too much of this book. It was fantastic. Please read The Glass Hotel. This book is available in large print, downloadable audiobook, ebook, and audiobook. It's fantastic. Next up, I have Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. Kazuo Ishiguro is one of my absolute favorite one of my absolute favorite authors. If you have not read a novel of his, I would definitely recommend this one. He's also written Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go. He has this amazing ability to write a novel as if it's a classic piece of literature that you would be studying in school, but it's happening right now. I don't know any other authors that I would put on that same level. He also is able to weave science fiction, fantasy elements into something, but make it feel so real and accessible. It doesn't feel, if somebody would say that they're not into science fiction, I would still recommend this book because it's so subtle and he weaves all of this world building in such an elegant way. Clara and the Sun is what's known as an artificial friend, which is essentially a very lifelike robot that we can buy for people as companionship. She's made to keep away loneliness. She's purchased for a 14-year-old girl who is implied has a terminal illness. And Clara, throughout the book, almost like a child, is able to take negativity and all of these things and still put out something good into the world. But over time, that kind of wears her down. There's a lot of elements as far as like world building goes that he doesn't necessarily reveal, like pulling a veil off your eyes, but it definitely makes for an interesting read to see all these weird kind of things that are happening around that are implying what's happened to Clara what happened to Josie, the little girl that she's with, that has made her so ill. That is Clara and the Sun. That one actually is not out yet. That one is out March 2nd. It's available in large print and ebook in addition to a traditional copy. Next one, this is probably the one I was most excited about. This is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I found out about this book on TikTok of all places because I'm on TikTok for some reason. And in every review I saw of this, the person would say, once you're done with it, it will be one of your new favorite books. And they weren't wrong. This book, and in a similar style to Stefan from Saturday Night Live, this book has everything. 17th century French peasants, hot demons, attractive intellectual bisexuals living in Brooklyn. The arts, it has everything. The story starts in the 17th century. Addie is a French peasant girl who in her early 20s, time has run out for her wild ways, and she is about to be married off to a man who has several children and is widowed. In a moment of panic, she prays to a god, what's known as a god after dark, which is implied to be some kind of dark lord or demon, that what she wants is time. She doesn't have enough time to do all the things that she wants to do so desperately. And he says, all right, I'll make that deal with you. And the next moment, she's still in the same place she was. She goes to find her family, and they have no idea who she is. She goes to find a friend. Same thing. She has no idea who she is, but she says, well, you seem like you're in distress, stranger. You can come into my house and I'll take care of you. She goes into the house with her. Her friend walks into another room. And when she comes back, she's completely forgotten who this woman is in her house. Addie has the gift of immortality. But this isn't the kind of immortality we see in movies where you can just kind of roll along and float along as things go. As soon as she is outside the vision of whoever she's with, they have completely forgotten she's existed. She can't get a job. She can feel the pain of hunger. She can get injured. She can feel all that pain, but she won't actually die from any of these things. Stubbornly, Addie refuses to give in to the demon, even though he's tricked her basically into this immortality that doesn't mean anything. And her life is very hard and it's very tragic, all the way up until one day she steals a book from a bookstore just because she wants to try something new. And the next day she tries to bring the book back to exchange it because this guy isn't going to know who she is, except the guy behind the counter does say the magic 3 words she's been looking for. I remember you. What plays out through the rest of the book had me guessing at every corner. It's a very beautifully written book. I can't get over how intimately the author wrote these characters. You will feel like you know these people by the end of the book. This one I could not put down. Oh, it's also narrated by Julia Whelan, who is like my favorite audiobook narrator. You can't go wrong with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. That one is available in large print, downloadable audiobook, ebook, and traditional audiobook. Next up, my nonfiction pick is Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. This is a case study into the family that basically changed how we treat schizophrenia. Before the 60s and 70s, schizophrenia was kind of a no man's land. We didn't really have a lot of science around it. Most medicine agreed that schizophrenia was actually caused by parenting and specifically poor mothering. And they didn't have a lot of numbers of people to be able to look into it to check the genetics of it, because most people, really only have like 2 or 3 kids. Like, how can you accurately plot out the genes of something like schizophrenia with that small of a sample size? Until the Galvin family, which had 12 children and 6 of which had schizophrenia. They were very closely studied and sometimes very unscrupulously. If you enjoyed the book, the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, there's a lot of crossover there. Robert Kolker does a great job of giving a very scientific and medical look into the story while also weaving in the narrative of what's really going on with this family in their own personal life. So that is the Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family. Last up, this is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This book, I had to take a break after reading this book because it affected me so much. Vanessa, when she is 15, begs her parents to go to a very fancy boarding school, which they allow to happen. Although when she's there, she is embroiled in an affair with her English teacher, who at the time, she looks at it as that it was pretty much her fault because she was too attractive to him, that he would have never had done this in a million years. It's her fault that this happened. And that continues all the way into adulthood. She keeps this idea of their love as being these star-crossed lovers that otherwise would have been together if not for circumstance. That is until she's in her 30s and she gets a call from another girl saying, "I'm going public with my story. I was also in a sexual relationship with this teacher." And it forces her to kind of take a second look to what was happening when she was 15. This book, I did not really want it to end. I was enjoying it so much while it was actually happening. It's also narrated by Grace Gummer, who is the daughter of the one true queen, Meryl Streep. She does a killer job. She really captures Vanessa's essence. I couldn't imagine anybody else reading this book to me. So if you enjoy books like that, that is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. That is available in traditional book and then audiobook and ebooks. And that's all I have for you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay, folks. I can't believe that we got this done by 8:30. Thank you for sticking with us. So it looks like Amy's been really great about answering all your questions in the Q&A. So if you asked a question there or you had something specific, she might have moved it over there and answered it for you. I might just hit on a couple. Someone asked if there's going to be an email blast with all the links or the titles that we've talked about. We do just have all those ready to go in a list that you can click on that will take you just straight to the catalog, and you can just place literally like everything on hold if you want to. So I'll make sure that gets back in the chat. Let's see. If you seem to really connect with a specific book talker, we do have a custom reading list service. So you can actually, everyone on this program is part of a specific team. So you can actually request them specifically to make you a list. So if you really liked the books they're talking about, you can ask for them specifically. Sorry, I'm looking at comments in the chat and I'm getting distracted telling you guys everything I need to tell you about. Before we do prize winners, I want to ask the very important question and tell us in the chat, what book are you most excited about that you heard about tonight? And just know that this means a lot to the book talkers and that they take it very seriously. So please drop what title you are like most excited about. We also want to know if you would like to do another virtual event like this, or if we were able to hold our in-person one at some point again, if you were definitely ready to come to one of those. So give me all those answers and comments down in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. If you missed any part of this program, it is recorded, so you can just come back and watch it on the same page if you just really like to hear and see us, that's great too. And you can direct other people to it. They can watch it even if they didn't sign up originally. I hope you're leaving us with a really long list of books that you're excited about, and we hope you all have a great night.